Welcome to session 2 of the apprentice training. For Scott and for Ryan, you weren't able to be here in person for session 1, neither was Lou. I posted some stuff to try to help you get a little bit caught up, although not everything was posted in terms of the stuff we covered in session 1, some of the things that are sort of the basic officiating overview, but all of you are WOA officials already. So you're familiar with some of the content that was in there that just talks about being a member of the WOA, being a member of PNWOA, using Arbiter for assignments. So some just sort of basic things about officiating, not for wrestling in specific, but just being an official that hopefully you guys already know some of that stuff. So not so much of a hindrance that you didn't get all of that content, but the main thing was that the other stuff that I gave you in the links and then the homework for this session, that stuff's important because now we're getting into some key content about wrestling. So for our agenda for tonight, the theme behind all this is preventive officiating, okay? And you'll see what I mean as we go through all the material. So we'll do a review on what we covered in session 1. We'll do a review on the homework stuff we did on the concept of control. Then as we go through tonight's session is focused on what I call the event mechanics. So it's the wrapper around everything that happens that you're responsible for an event outside of two guys wrestling each other and calling a match. So all the other stuff, like if you guys do football or whatever, before they ever kick off, there's things you're doing, same with us in our sport, right? So, how do you run an event? This is what tonight is focused on. So it starts with pre-arrival, and then once you get on site, we'll cover that. Conducting weigh-ins, that's an important duty for us. Pre-meeting the teams, and then doing pre-meet with the support staff as well as checking out the facilities. Pre-meeting your table crew, or your key helpers during an event. We'll talk about times out. That's the grammatically correct way to say it, not timeouts, but times out. There's different kinds of timeout events that you'll have. Talk about the end of the meet, what happens post-event. You have a couple of tasks you might have to do post-event, and then we'll do a recap of what we covered tonight, okay? So we got a lot of ground to cover, we'll just jump right in. So session 1, we talked about assignments. Arbiter is the tool that we use, so log into Arbiter often, that's how you'll keep up with things. Because I have to deal with 40 to 45 officials during the high school season, and then by the end of the spring season, when we have the middle school officials come on board, I'll be dealing with literally like 70 to 80 officials total, so I can't be on the phone with them. My main way of communicating with them is through Arbiter and through email. So what does the start time in Arbiter represent? Who remembers that was here on session 1 or has used Arbiter before with me? When you look at that start time in Arbiter, what does that mean?
Probably an hour before the meet starts.
Generally, it's an hour before. So what that start time in Arbiter means in our group is that's the time that you have to be on site in uniform, ready to perform your duties. It's not when you're just arriving, it's not when the contest starts, it's when you're expected to be there, ready to do whatever you need to do. Generally, for a dual meet, it's an hour prior, because that's when weigh-ins will take place. But for middle school events where we don't weigh them in, it's 15 minutes prior to the start of the contest. So whatever that time is, it just means you're in uniform at the event site, ready to go, do whatever you're supposed to do, okay? And it differs between other associations, so that some of them, they put the actual start time of the contest, and then the assumption is, well, you're supposed to be there an hour early. Or whatever.
Yeah.
I cut the confusion. That's just the time you need to be on site there.
Okay.
And that's the time I would tell the school, if weigh-in's gonna be at 5 and I put that as the start time and the school says when's the official gonna be there, I'm gonna tell he's gonna be there at 5. Okay, good, because the JV meet starts at 6, right? Alright, make sure when you get an assignment in Arbiter, accept or decline expeditiously, meaning don't sit on an assignment for days and days and days, and I'm not sure if I can or can't. Use whatever your best information is, and then within the first 2 days, just make your accept or decline. If you accept it, you don't have the power to take yourself off the assignment. You can just contact me and say, hey Bob, I accepted that assignment last week, but it turns out we have a special session at work tonight, tomorrow night, I can't go after all, can you replace me? And we will, okay? But what kills me in my role as the assigner is if I push assignments out to guys and then I'm sitting there waiting, and I have a bunch of events tomorrow and I still have guys that haven't answered, and now suddenly I'm having to make phone calls to guys. So you can relieve all that by just getting your assignment, figuring out your calendar, make the accept or decline. If you decline, great. That means I have that much more time to go find somebody else, okay? And then, like I said, email is my primary way to communicate with people. And then by exception, I'll use the phone for short notice stuff. So, like in my example of, oh, I accepted that thing for Thursday night, but here it is Wednesday morning. My boss tells me we gotta work late, or I gotta take on a special shift. All right, you contact me on the phone. Hey, Bob, I can't go tomorrow night. All right, great. Now I'm calling Ephraim. Are you available tomorrow night? Be at Foster High School? Yes, good. I'm gonna push out an assignment to you. So that's when I'll use phone primarily, is when it's short notice stuff, okay? All right, we went over the publications. So there's 2 publications we have, which is the rules book, the purple book, and the case manual / referee's manual, which is the yellow book, okay? So for Rule, you guys didn't really get much into the case manual. We sort of focused on the rules book primarily for the high school kids that officiated in the spring, but now you need to be familiar with that yellow book as well. So when we talk about a rule reference, so for my experienced wrestling officials and my guy that was at session 1, when we refer to a rule, what is the standard we use when we refer to the rule? How do we refer to it? What's the convention here? So you're looking in the rules book right now, Ephraim. Find rule 5-15-1 for me.
5-what?
15-1. And what does that rule cover? 5-15 in general, what does it cover?
Inbounds.
Inbounds. Okay, so what is our standard? When I said 5-15-1, what was I referring to? Literally.
The section.
So
Rule 5.
Rule 5,
Article 15.
section
Or
15,
section 15.
and then
Article 1.
Article 1. So that rule dash section dash article. Okay, that's our convention for the rules book. Now, if I refer to a case manual case, what's the convention? It's very similar. There's one slight little difference.
Is this situation?
There will be a situation, so that's one difference, but we refer to those, if you see the references there, it would be 5.15.1 situation A or situation B. So when we talk about the rules, dash, when we talk about a case situation, it's dot, okay? So just, again, some conventions to be familiar with. Study your official signals, use those. I don't know how it is for you guys in football. I don't know if your lead dogs in football are restrict you on you using the official signals, but in our sport, in all sports, right, the official, they make signals and that's how people understand what's going on. Especially in a sport like football where they can, fans in the stand can't even hear you. You're out on a field, right? So when they see you, do this, they know you mean pass interference. And so it is in wrestling. When we do this, they know we're signaling a reversal, okay? So we don't want to make up signals and then, oh, that's my signal for a reversal. We're going to confuse the scorekeepers, we're going to confuse the fans and coaches and maybe the wrestlers. So use the official signals. That's for clarity's purpose, and people are recording stuff and following along based on your signals. So the signals are in the book there. And you have to study the rules. Like in our first session, all we did was just skim through and just highlight what's in the book in terms of the different content and how to find it. It's up to each of us as individual officials to do our study and know what's in there, okay? All right, a couple of principles of officiating we covered. Remember, it's not about you. So everyone that enters into officiating, you just need to know that you're a servant to the sport that you're serving, okay? And so We don't wanna be calling attention to ourselves, it's not about us, it's about those competitors, okay? So, that's principle number one. Principle number two, gotta be consistent with your rules. You may not be perfect on your rules, but what will kill you with coaches and other people is that if you're not consistent. Because there are some things that we have to do that are just judgment based primarily. You may know the rule, but his judgment might be different than mine. Is this guy, are his shoulders within 45 degrees of the mat or not? He says no, he says they're at 46 degrees, I say it's 44. We could both be right, we don't know, we don't have a protractor, we're not measuring it. So the thing is, if he thinks that's less than 45 degrees, great. Then call whatever's in that range 45 degrees every time. Don't say, oh, that's 45 degrees also. Oh, that isn't even close. Same way the guy calling strikes, balls and strikes. If the ball's this far off the plate and he calls it a strike, you're okay as long as he does it for everybody, both teams. You'll just tell your kids, hey, the ball that far off the plate is a strike tonight, guys. Don't let it go by. But if it's this far off the plate for a strike one pitch, and then this far off another pitch and he calls that a strike, it's like, okay, that's when you're gonna drive people crazy. So, same with us, just be consistent. We have to see something to call it. So, we gotta see the shoulders both down to call a pin. We can't call it just by thinking, well, he's laying all over the top, and I know he's pinned in there. You don't know anything unless you can see it with your eyes, okay? So, seek to get it right is one of our principles. That means if you make a mistake and you're aware of it, correct it. And that's a hard thing to do as officials. Like, we are being scrutinized all the time and we can get defensive and it's sort of like, but you know what? If you know you've made a mistake and you can correct it, correct it. People are gonna be applauding you for doing the right thing versus if you try to hide your mistake. Because some people may know you made a mistake anyway and you go, he doesn't even know you made a mistake, like this official's incompetent. So we just try to get it right as best we can, okay? Because we're doing what we best for the kids as we can do. And then the last thing is this rules book. We see how thick this is, right? Not very thick. Remember, there are, what, exactly 3,971,485,244 different situations. They're not all written in this thin book, are they? This book would be all the way to Mars. So, there's a lot of white space that we have to fill, and we just use our common sense. Not every 3 billion situations is outlined in there, but if you know your rules and apply them well and consistently, and use your common sense, you're gonna do the right thing, okay? Alright, so we had training on supporting points. Who remembers what the definition of a supporting point is? What are the key parts of the definition of a supporting point? So, what is the book? Could the book be a supporting point, or?
The majority of the weight.
Okay, they're a majority of weight?
That's the supporting point.
Yes.
That's the supporting
Yeah.
point. It's not
And
base.
a supporting point has to be a body part.
Yeah.
So a body part touching the mat, they say, right? And then we know that these supporting points are the majority of the weight are supported by it, because we had, like in this little picture here, remember we had that guy's got 6 supporting points technically by the rule. Alright, so, but the ones we care about, and the NFHS cares about a maximum of how many? No, 2. Right, so when they say, because they are kind of sloppy and not very precise in their language, because they'll say things like, well, when all of the supporting points are in. Well, when this guy has 6 supporting points, we don't care about 4 of them, right? So the thing is, if his hand, which isn't a supporting point, is beyond the boundary line, by the strict letter of the rule, you would say, well, not all of his supporting points are in bounds. But we would never make an inbounds or out of bounds decision based off of where his hand is in that position, right? What are his supporting points here? His knees, right? So we don't care if his toe slides across the boundary line or his finger is on the other side of the boundary line. So the rule book is not very helpful in that regard. If I could rewrite the rules on this, I would. And I would be very clear about there are only 2 supporting points that matter, and they bear the majority of the weight, okay? And then how many could a wrestler have, or that matter? What's the range? You have 2?
0 or 1.
They have 0 or 1, right? So they could have 6 by the letter of the rule, but in terms of the ones that matter, they could have 0, 1, or 2, right? And we talked about the different scenarios there. One could have 0.
When he's being taken down, he's up in the air.
Yeah, when a guy lifts him off the mat. Now, he did no body parts in contact with the mat, right? So he doesn't have any supporting points. How could he have 1?
If he's being tipped over, he only has 1 foot on the ground. Or
Yeah, you grab a single leg on me, now suddenly all I have is the 1 leg. Okay. Alright. Inbounds, out of bounds. Key things, remember that the entire line is in. So in some sports like football, right, you touch the line, that's out. Just even a little bit of chalk on the inner part of the boundary line, and you're out. Play over. Sorry, the other 65 yards of that run don't count. I saw you kick up a little chalk dust on the 30-yard line. So, but in our sport, the entire line is in. And again, inbounds rule says that all supporting points are in, but when they refer to the supporting points in here, I want you to think the supporting points. And so, if all of the supporting points are in, then somebody's inbounds, okay? And then remember, we have to use both Rule 5-15, the inbounds rule, and 5-18, the out-of-bounds rule, to work in conjunction with each other, because, anyone remember the weird situation that we could have?
Yeah, because you can have an offensive wrestler inbounds going for a pin, and the defensive wrestler's out of bounds, but because the offense is in, you're still going to count the near fault points.
Well, that's a rule change we had this year that allows that to happen. The weird situation we could have is the inbounds rule says when all the supporting points are in, then somebody is inbounds. The out of bounds rule says that if each wrestler has a supporting point out of bounds, then they are out. So we can have a weird situation where I lift you. How many supporting points do you have now?
0.
0. And then all of a sudden I step across the line.
Out.
I have 1 out. Does this guy have any out?
No.
No, because he doesn't have any. So suddenly Rule 5-18 doesn't work either. Because it says each has to have a supporting point out of bounds. Well, he doesn't. I do. He doesn't. So then we go back to the inbounds rule. Does anybody have all their supporting points in? I don't. He doesn't. He doesn't have. Okay, well, no. If nobody is inbounds, ergo, we must be out. So we have to use those 2 rules in conjunction with each other, okay? And this is why these things that we covered with supporting points, inbounds, out of bounds, control, they are the building blocks of the sport. If you understand these rules and these definitions and you apply them, this sport gets very easy to officiate. Where officials go wrong in this sport is they don't know these definitions. And then they start having struggles as they watch action and they're trying to apply rules because they don't have a clear sense of what is somebody's supporting points in a situation. Now is he inbounds or out of bounds? Does he have control yet or not? Like when they don't know these definitions, they're going to have more variability and they're probably going to get certain situations wrong. And those become consequential because most of those things, like you saw in the homework in the video on the building blocks, those 3 things are buried in every single critical scoring decision. So if you understand those, you'll make this, and the scoring decisions are the most important things that we do. So we may get it wrong and not have the benches 10 feet from the edge of the mat. We might miss that in our pre-meet. It might be 9 feet from the edge of the mat. So what? As long as somebody doesn't go flying off the mat and cracking their head, and they go, well, if it had only been that 1 foot further away. But if you screw up scoring decisions, you're doing a dual meet of 14 matches and you're screwing those up, people are going to notice that and it's going to be consequential. Guys could be winning and losing because you're not applying those correctly. So that's why I'm so focused on, if you get those concepts right, like these guys, they officiated as high schoolers and they did a fine job. The coaches say, wow, your young guys do a fine job. Yes, because we focus on those fundamentals and teaching them those fundamentals. All right, so concept of control. Rule 5-6 was our rule on control. What was our formula for control?
Position of advantage plus restraining power.
Yes. So what is
power of restraint, whatever.
Yeah. So what, and then if we break down those two terms, so what does it mean to have restraining power?
Means if I grab you or if I've got you, you can't move, 4 feet within 2 seconds?
So that was sort of my acid test, right?
Yeah.
Literally, it sort of means I'm not free to move about. And the way I sort of phrase it is, yeah, if I give this guy I'm holding on to, you can go any direction you want, your choice, pick whatever, and go 4 feet anywhere in the next 2 seconds. If he couldn't do that, that means I'm restraining him. So, that's restraining power. What about position of advantage? Ephraim, what is the position of advantage? How would you define that? Or how would you
Position I'd rather be in.
Yeah, it's just, there's the common sense showing up, right? Like, in a sense that, like, who has the better position? Like, you just use your common sense. Like, the guy who's got his face flat on the mat, laying on his stomach, and the other guy's over the top of him, laying on top, like, who's in the better position? Not the guy with his face buried in the mat, okay? So, sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious, right? But that's the formula. Restraining power plus position advantage. Again, learn this, use those terms, apply that definition, and then it gets easy. We don't spend a bunch of time in our training where I go, okay, and somebody goes, well, when is it is it a takedown when a guy steps over his leg? Is it a takedown when he gets him to his butt and he's in between the legs? Like, I go back to this and I go, well, does he have control? If he's got his opponent on his butt and he's in between his legs, does he have restraining power? Well, yeah, he's holding on both of his legs. Does he have a position advantage? Well, yeah, the guy's on his butt and he's right in between his legs, deep in it. Okay, you just answered your own question. If I try to teach, and this is where a lot of training goes wrong, because that's how a lot of guys get trained, is like, well, it's not a takedown until he's, hip to hip, or he's stepped over both legs, or, or he's put him to his butt and now he's gone up from the legs to the waist, like, those all could be true. But the analogy I would give you, it would be like, if I wanted you to understand how to identify that a certain animal was a mammal, and imagine if the way I trained you was, I say, Ryan, a cow is a mammal. Ephraim, a rabbit is a mammal. Charles, a human is a mammal. And you would go, okay, every time I see a cow, a human, a rabbit, like, I know they're mammals. Okay, what about a duck-billed platypus? Right? Now, but if I define what a mammal is to you, and I say, well, a mammal is warm-blooded, it gives live birth to its young or whatever, like, now suddenly when I say, is a fish a mammal?
Nope.
No, how come?
It's not warm-blooded.
Not warm-blooded, so it's not a mammal. So you're not going to be confused. Same with this definition. So like in my, is it a takedown when he's just got a single leg and then he steps over the other, okay, is a fish a mammal? If I haven't taught you the definition of a mammal, you're going to go, I don't know, mammals have eyes, right? The fish has eyes, he has a mouth, like, sometimes they have tails, so yeah, it could be a mammal, right? No, like, now you know a mammal's warm-blooded, you go, no, fish isn't warm-blooded, not a mammal. Does he have a takedown? Does not have restraining power. That guy's free to move out. Okay, well, then he doesn't have control. So, you gotta know that formula and use those terms. Alright. And like I said, it gets simple when you just apply the definition, because now that's how come I don't need a case book or a rule book that's a mile wide with all 3 billion situations, because now all you do is you watch those 3 billion situations, and for each one you'll just say, well, does he have restraining power? Does he have position advantage? And it's pretty straightforward for the vast majority. There are some where it's a little less straightforward, right? You guys have officiated. Not all the time is it really easy. Does he really have the advantage yet? He's in pretty deep. That guy's got that whizzer going still. And sometimes you have to judge a little bit harder. But you're using that definition when you're judging. Does he have control yet? Okay, no he doesn't, because I don't think he has the advantage yet. Guy still has a whizzer going, and I don't think he's been able to secure a position of advantage yet. Okay, there you go. You made your judgment, and it's based on the rule, it's based on that definition. Whether he agrees with you, or he looks at the same action, and I go, yeah, I think that whizzer isn't doing anything. Like, okay, well, you're both applying the definition, and again, your judgment could be different, just like Is that 45 degrees or 40, 44 or 46? I don't know. But if you know the near fall rule and say, well, the criteria is it has to be 45 degrees or less, and I'm counting near fall because I think that's 44 degrees, then okay, you know your rule. And I look at it and go, no, that's not quite 45. He's right, 45 and a half, 46, like, that's why I'm not counting. All right, we're both right. Even though he may disagree with my judgment, I disagree with his on whether that's 45 or that's 45 or whatever, okay? All right, now, there was the concept of gaining control, retaining control, and losing control. How do we know when the control situation, how do we know when somebody's gained control? What do you remember from the training now? How do you know when somebody has gained control?
Straining power, position of advantage.
Yeah, he gets both those things. Definition. It's simple, right? So he has to get both things. So when nobody has control, in order for a guy to gain control, he has to get both the restraining power and the position advantage. He could get the restraining power, I can shoot in on we may be neutral, I shoot in, grab a single leg, he sprawls, and now I'm locked on that single leg, and he can't go anywhere, right? Like he's fighting me, but I'm underneath him. So I may have the restraining power, because he can't just go wherever he wants, but I don't have an advantage yet. So you look at me and you go, well, like in this situation right here, well, if they started neutral, well, he doesn't have control yet. He doesn't have an advantage yet. Okay? So, got to get both things to get control. Now, how do you know when control has changed when you're watching a wrestling match? So, when, let's say you're a fan in the stands, how do you know that the control situation has changed? Just by watching. Well, you can watch, again, you can apply your definition, but if you're watching the referee, how do you know when it's changed? So
There's escape or reverse.
So you basically got when the referee awards points. So as soon as you see him say, oh, there's 2 for a takedown, somebody just gained control, or there's 2 reversal, now we know that the control is switched from one guy to the other, or, oh, neutral, 1 point escape, now we know that the guy who had control lost the control. So that's when we know it's changed, when the referee will award the takedown and reversal escape. If the referee isn't awarding it, what he's saying is nothing's changed yet. Nope. Wow, he's just, all he's got is his ankle. Well, as soon as he thinks that guy's escaped his control, he should do this. But if he doesn't award an escape, then it hasn't changed yet. Okay? So, there was one of the guiding principles we had around the control situation, sort of, if I add, like when I ask you this question, like, does this guy have control? What should your response to me be? No. What if I said, yes, he does?
Because he started on top.
So what should have been your response when I said, does this guy have control?
Where did he start?
Where did we start? That's our principle, right? Like, you have to ask that question first. What was the control situation when this action started? And, oh, he was on top. Okay, does he have control? Yeah. I say he does, because I say he still has restraining power on this guy with that front head and arm, and still a position of advantage that he's got that guy's head, he's over the top of him. So, you know what? Yeah, I say he still has control. Now, how about if I say this? Does this guy have control? What's your response?
No.
You mean from a neutral?
Where did he start?
Where did he start? They started neutral.
No.
No. So that's the first thing in your mind should be, if I ask, is this guy in control? Your first response would be, well, where did he start? Like, were they neutral? Was he the bottom guy? Is he the top guy? Like, and then you'll make your decision of, okay, has the control situation changed? Because the only ways that we have the control situation change is either somebody relinquishes both aspects. So the guy that had control now no longer has restraining power, no longer has a position of advantage. When he's lost both things, we know he no longer has control. What's the only other way that the control situation will change? So one is that in example A, I have control, and now I've lost both aspects, advantage and restraining power. So now, that's one way I could lose control. What is the other way the control situation could change? There's one other way.
Out of bounds?
Not out of bounds.
Technical violations?
No. The other way is if the other guy takes them both. Because what can happen is this. Let's say I'm on top, and I break this guy down, I'm trying to turn him over, and I screw up. And I'm wrapped around his torso, so I've got restraining power on him. But here's the mat, I'm on top, I'm on my side, all of a sudden, like I screw up and he flips his legs over. And now I'm still bear hugging him, but now he's laying on top of me, chest to chest. But I still have restraining power.
And close getting pinned too.
Mm-hmm. But what does he have now?
Advantage.
He has an advantage because he's on top of me, right?
Yeah.
And does he have restraining power on me? Yeah, because he's laying on top of me. I can't just go anywhere. So guess what? He just took both things. So that's the other way. So even though I retained, right, I didn't lose both of them. I'm an idiot for holding on to this. Yeah, I should bail out now. And this guy flipped over and now he's laying on top of me. But again, this is the other way it happens. Now he took both things. So now he has taken control from me. Okay? So these are, again, this is how the rule, the definition gets applied, right? You just look at the action with the definition, with the formula in mind, and you'll get these situations right, okay? You took the post test for control, right? How many did you get right?
We got 80%. I
Okay,
think on that one I got 80%.
and how about for you, when you took the post test for control? Out of the 20 situations, how many did you
I
miss?
think I got like, yeah, I got like 65 or something.
Okay. How about for you?
I think it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, pretty good.
Number 18 was, I was gonna ask you about that.
Okay,
You know 18, when it takes him out of balance, he's got his knees, his 2 feet are in. So the way I understood it was, I mean, you said in the video that the feet aren't
they're not supporting
not
points.
supporting points.
Yeah.
But in parentheses you wrote because he was below the knees, or right at the knees,
Mhm.
but his hips were out of balance, he still got the 2 points.
Yeah, so, in the takedown rule,
Yeah.
5-25, a takedown occurs, and this was in the building blocks presentation, right? Takedown occurs when they start neutral and someone gains control, so gets an advantage in restraining power, down on the mat. So when are we not down on the mat?
Or feet.
Yeah, when the supporting points are the feet.
Yeah.
And the supporting points are the feet only when they hold 100% of the weight. So in this position, they're not holding 100% of my weight, right? So they're not my supporting point. So control, down on mat, inbounds, but in that picture you're talking about where the guy's stretched out, right? The other guy's way out of bounds on his butt, right? And this guy that's attacking he's on his toes, it's stretched out. So the only thing that's sort of, if this is the boundary line, that's out of bounds. And the only thing that's sort of in it are the 2 toes are inside the line, right? And everything else is everybody's out there. So he doesn't have any supporting points in. So he's not in bounds. Nobody's in bounds. So if it doesn't meet that, the other way is that he has control down on the mat, and at least the feet finish in bounds. So that's what the rule 5-25 tells. We call that edge of mat scoring. And that rule changed back in 1991, and all it did was it just allowed a guy to score who initiated a really good move that landed out of bounds. So what's happening in that situation?
So he initiated inside.
Yeah, what's happening in that situation is, theoretically or technically, he is gaining control and they are landing out of bounds simultaneously. And the rule used to be, when I first started officiating back in 1989, that out of bounds, no takedown. But in 1991, they changed that rule so he could go out of bounds, and that's 2 takedown. He has control down on the mat. But they were out at the moment he hit. So that's what that situation 18 was about. So he could score the 2 points. It's just that at the instant they hit the out of bounds, you're just blowing the whistle. They're out of bounds. And what you're doing is you're evaluating that moment, like the instant they hit the out of bounds, that Does he have control at that moment? He's not allowed to, like, after they hit the out of bounds, like, start moving up to get control. Because action is dead. The instant they hit the mat in that body position, I would be going, and in that picture, number 18, I would say to myself, oh, he's got advantage and restraining power, like, I'm gonna give him 2, even though I blew the action dead. But if he only had, let's say, 1 leg when they landed, and I'm going out of bounds, and his next motion is he's grabbing the second leg, and it's like, nope. We were out of bounds the instant you landed like this, and I was blowing the whistle, and too bad, all this happened after the whistle. So, anyway, the post-test was just a good way for you to start seeing how to apply, because they weren't all straightforward situations, right? And again, this is where there's some judgment involved sometimes around, you know, do you think that's enough of an advantage? Do you think that's enough restraining power? Okay? Alright, so now let's talk about event mechanics. So, and like I said to everybody in session 1 or when I've talked to you on the phone, right, like, if you've wrestled, you know 80% of what you need to know to officiate the sport, right? Same with guys that probably play football or baseball or basketball. Like, if you play the sport, you kind of know the rules. But it's that 20% of stuff that has nothing to do with the competitor that you're responsible for as the official that you got to know, because some of that stuff can be consequential, and you're the only one with that responsibility, and sometimes the only one that has the complete knowledge of stuff. And so when we focus on these event mechanics, we're focused on a bunch of stuff, again, where the key here is preventive officiating. So my theme here, and the way this will translate as we go through this, is that a smooth event begins before you ever arrive. So, and then when we're on site, you'll see that we're going to do certain things before the competition ever begins, because we're going to prevent certain things from ever happening on the mat. Because the goal with preventive officiating, I don't know how they apply this concept in sports like football, but the goal in wrestling is that when we're in the middle of a competition with 2 wrestlers wrestling each other, that's not the time I want to be worried about, oh, does that scorekeeper even know how to work that clock? Because he just messed up again. This is like the 5th time you haven't started the clock when I blew the whistle, or didn't stop it and tell me that the time had expired. And here I was like, a kid was getting pinned or scored upon, and then I find out, oh, the clock ended like 15, 20 seconds ago. So, like, when we're in the middle of battle, we don't want to be thinking about things like, oh my gosh, is there a doctor on site? Like, so there's a bunch of stuff that, you know, we're going to do in advance, and so part of it is this pre-arrival stuff, right? So first thing is just manage your calendar, right? Like when I push you an assignment, you're going to look at your calendar and go, oh, can't do that. Yeah, we're out of town that day. So no. Or yeah, I can do that because that's a good night for me. Like Charles is a police officer. He couldn't come to our Monday training sessions. You guys couldn't come because you're football officials or whatever. Still doing football games, JV or whatever. So we had this session here. So for Charles, he was able to go, I can't come Mondays. And then Scott was the same way. And so we're like, okay, let me set up an alternate session. And then he doesn't work on Thursday nights. You're done with football by this time? Great. So we manage our calendar so we can make good commitments versus these guys saying, okay, I want to be an apprentice. And then here I am going, where are those guys on Monday night? Like, they're not showing up. Yeah, for those of you that already officiate, but any of us, we just live here, right? Like, travel to the site is an important thing. Traffic can be horrible in this area. It can literally take, to get from here to Northgate could take you half an hour, and it's only about 3 miles, right? So, depending on where you're going, it's going to be dark, rainy, there's an accident, it's commuting time, whatever. Like, take into consideration, look at where you're going and make sure you go, okay, if I have to go from here to Redmond High School, well, I gotta go across 520, all right, well, I better plan an appropriate departure time so I can get there on time, considering that if I have to be at Redmond High School at 5 o'clock, I better leave home or office at 4 o'clock. That'll give me enough time to get out there. It'll probably take me 35 minutes, and that gives me a 15-minute buffer, And then, like we covered in session 1, you gotta contact the school. When you have an assignment, contact the school in advance. No later than 11 a.m. the morning of a dual meet. So, if they cancel an event within 5 hours of the start time, so For instance, let's say I've assigned you a JV dual meet that starts at 6 p.m. If they cancel after 1 p.m., they have to pay you for your contest fee. Because it's in recognition that some guys are taking off early from work or whatever, or they might be missing like hours at work and not getting paid. And they can't just have the schools go, oh yeah, oh I'm sorry, you didn't get the word. You get,
So we actually call the school?
yes, you call the school, because you'll have an assignment, you'll call the school, and it'll sound like this. You try and get a hold of the head coach, the head coach, when we have their number and contact information is an arbiter, and or the AD. So you'll have, when you look at your assignment, you can click on that and you'll see the contacts. So your contact will sound like this, you know, if I can get through to the person, hey, this is Bob Turner, I'm your varsity wrestling official for tonight, and this is the schedule I've got. I've got 5 o'clock weigh-in, I'm gonna be doing the JV meet also, so that's supposed to start at 6 o'clock, and then the varsity schedule start at 7:30. I heard that the varsity wants to weigh in with the JV, so they can do that at 5 o'clock. Here's my cell phone number, 206-617-4354, in case anything happens or changes between now and then. Otherwise, I'll plan to see everybody at 5 o'clock tonight. That way that coach Rady can go, no, not today. That we had the band concert, the Christmas band concert, needed to use the gym. We rescheduled that to January 9th. It's like, oh, okay. Now I don't show up at the school. Like, this is our fail-safe. Because guys that don't do this, they show up at the school and they find out, oh yeah, they had the band concert. Like they rescheduled that dual meet. Or, oh, Bob had it wrong in Arbor. It's not at Redmond High School, it's down at Newport High School in Bellevue. He had the home and the visitors mixed up. But when you called Redmond High School's AD and you said, oh yeah, I'll be there at 5 o'clock. Wait a minute, no, that's at Newport. Oh, glad I'm finding out about this at 10 a.m. Versus showing up at Redmond at 5 o'clock and then trying to figure out how am I going to get from Redmond down to Newport. And those guys are all waiting around already for weigh-in, and it might take me an hour to get there. So you call the school, and this is our fail-safe, that if I made a mistake putting the stuff in Arbiter, or they made a mistake in the information they gave me, they go, oh, crud, yeah, I told Bob it was December 18th, it's December 19th. We're doing this, right? So they may have made a mistake, I may have made a mistake, something may have happened. Hey, the school's closed today, there was a big, transformer blew up, we had to send everybody home, there's no meet tonight. So call, and it avoids problems, okay? And it allows you to confirm, again, hey, I'll be there for 5 o'clock. Oh, no, they don't have any JVs. So they're just gonna come, we're gonna weigh in everybody at 6:30 and start the varsity at 7:30. Oh, okay, good, I won't waste an hour and a half getting there early then. So this is how you save yourself and save them. All right, then there's the arrival. And here, I want you to think about the tone you set throughout, and it starts when you arrive. Okay, so if you're a serious guy, be a serious guy. If you're a, casual, lighthearted guy, be a casual, lighthearted guy. Just make sure that you're not crossing the lines the wrong way and, getting out of your role in the wrong way so that somehow people don't respect you in your role or whatever. But don't try to be somebody you're not. Okay? So, in our sport, and I don't know how this is in the other sports, but our jurisdiction begins the moment we arrive. So, you step out of your car in the parking lot, you are in charge on duty. So, for instance, it is a flagrant misconduct in the sport of wrestling, and I think it's probably true in all the sports, for anyone to use tobacco products. Some kid chewing tobacco, or coach smoking or something out in the parking lot, not allowed to do that. So as soon as I pull up in my car in the parking lot, if I step out of my car and I see somebody using tobacco products, I'm on duty now. Like, oh my gosh, are you the coach? Yeah. Not tonight, you aren't. You are. That's a flagrant misconduct. You're smoking. You're on at the event. So that's true in our sport. We arrive, and as soon as we arrive, we're on duty. We can enforce stuff. Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
If it became a he said, I said kind of situation, who will be the judge of this?
you are because,
You're right.
yeah, well, by rule 3-1-12, right, or 3-1-4, maybe it is, 5. The referee is responsible for all rulings and judgments, and they're final. So, it's the same thing with, well, that wasn't a pin. Well, it was. Your opinion matters a little less than me because I have to blow the whistle and slap the mat, like. So you're free to think that wasn't a takedown, I thought it was. Same with, hey, I wasn't really doing that in the parking lot. Yes, he was. And I'm the referee. And so he's ejected. Well, I'm gonna tell my AD and my principal, go ahead. Like, I don't have a picture or video of you, but you were doing that, and you know it. So, your opinion matters more than anyone else when it comes to applying the rules, okay? Alright, I arrive in uniform. Some guys like to arrive and then change when they get on site, but because of this first bullet point, I like to arrive in uniform so that people know the referee's here. Because if a guy's doing something that he ought not be doing, I don't want to be like an undercover cop. They're not supposed to be losing weight using like rubber suits and stuff. So some kids, sitting there jumping rope with 4 layers of rubber sweats on, trying to lose 3 pounds in the next 15 minutes. And I come sauntering in and I see that, it's like, oh, that you're not eligible to wrestle tonight. So I don't want that to happen though, because I look like this. Hey son, are you one of the wrestlers? Yeah. What are you doing? I gotta lose 3 pounds in the next 15 minutes. Don't bother. Why? Because you're not wrestling tonight. What do you mean? I'm the official. What? So if I arrive on site in my uniform, everybody knows it. It's never happened to me, but I just don't ever want it to happen. I don't want everyone to go, well, that was sneaky. Like, okay, I just arrive in uniform. When you get there, introduce yourself to the home coach. So find out who's sort of running things there. It's usually the head coach, but it might be like the AD, or they may have somebody running a site manager for the gym. But go introduce yourself to them. Get to know them. Hey, I'm Bob Turner, and what was that, Lou? Lou, okay. How long have you been coaching here, Lou? Just exchange pleasantries, but then most importantly, get the status from the coach on what's going on. For instance, are there any weight allowances? Oh, hey, the other team, they wrestled last night, so we all get a 1 pound allowance at weigh-in. Oh, okay, that's good. Or, oh yeah, tonight's senior night, so, we're gonna shorten the JV matches down to 1 minute rounds and 1.5 minutes instead, so that we're gonna start the senior night stuff at 7:15. The moms are gonna give them flowers and blah, 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 like, okay. So, get your update from the coach on anything that's going on, or it could be something like, hey, I haven't heard from Roosevelt, and I've been trying to get a hold of the guy, and I heard there was a big accident on 520, so they may be late, like, can we delay the weigh-in in case they don't get here on time? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. So, get the download from the coach, and then ask him where the locker room is, so that if you're not familiar with the school, like.
I got a question, is it a Washington thing, or when did the rule change? Because in the olden days, there was never any officials in the weigh-in until the state tournament.
It's in our state, so by rule, the weigh-in doesn't have to be conducted by a referee. It can be conducted by an authorized person, which could be an athletic director, a tournament director, some agreeable party, but in our state, it's always been the referee that they've given that responsibility to. Yeah, because in some states, they also have sort of travel issues, right? Like if you're in a state like Wyoming or Alaska or something, sometimes the referee may be, and the other teams may be coming from, a long way away, and they may say, okay, well, they get to weigh in at their own place because they got to drive 4 hours to get here. So we don't want them to show up after sitting in a bus for 4 hours and then they're dehydrated and all that other stuff. So states can make certain accommodations for that. But for us, yes, the referee conducts weigh-in. By exception, now like when I've had situations where, again, the traffic's horrible. I can't go anywhere. Like I left in plenty of time, but this is one of those horrible nights in Seattle area. And because I already have been in contact with the school before, I'm dialing them up on my cell phone, because I have their number. And it's like, hey, I'm stuck here, on I-90, like, I don't know, I should have been at Issaquah like 15 minutes ago, but it could be another half hour, and I know weigh-in starts in 20 minutes, like, can you get like the AD to conduct weigh-in? Yeah, let me go get the AD. Okay, great. Like, why don't you have him cover that? And that way, if I don't get there on time, you guys can weigh in on time. So we can make arrangements for that, again, if we know. But that's why reaching out in advance helps with all that, right? All right. So once you've got the download from the coach, and he says, oh yeah, our locker rooms go around the corner there in that hallway, and it's on the right or whatever. Now you know where the weigh-in is going to take place. So for weigh-ins, what we want to do is just do your business now. Have an approach and be businesslike as you go through it. That'll help have a good weigh-in. The weigh-in is an opportunity for some chaos to happen, because you suddenly have both teams, and if they're a full team, they've got 14 wrestlers, on each team, plus they'll have other wrestlers who could be their JV guy. They may be moving guys around, so you might be weighing in, you got like 30, 40, even 50 guys in the locker room, right? And so you gotta have a good approach here, because this introduces the possibility for some things you don't want to have happen. So first thing is the scale has to be certified. So the scales, most of them are digital now. They'll usually have a sticker on them that'll say, it expires November 7th, 2018 or whatever. So just look at the sticker, or on occasion it may not be on the scale. The coach may have like a notebook or something that's got like some form from the agency that'll certify the scale, like, oh yeah, here it is, and they got the signature and the stamp and all that stuff. So that scale has to be certified, okay? Yeah.
In the circumstances that there are no scales that are certified in the area.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second here then. So, certification has to happen each season. So you can't say, like your credit card, it expires in 2020. No, they have to do it every year. Okay, so if there isn't a certified scale on premise, then we got to go with what we have. Now, theoretically, in the old days, we could have said, well, there's no certified scale, nobody can weigh in, there's no event tonight. Now, we don't want to do that. So we are, the interpretation we've been given is that use the scale they have on hand then, because both teams have to use it. So whatever the situation is with the scale, if it's not certified, they're both using the same scale, so whatever the scale says is the same for both sides. So we're going to use that scale, but you're going to report to me as soon as you can, or after the event's over, to say, hey Bob, I was out at East Lake High School, their scale's not certified. I told the coach. Say, great, because I'll follow up with the AD the next day and say, hey, Sam, your guy's scale is not certified. That needs to be corrected, because next time one of my officials shows up there, if it's not certified, then we're not going to conduct a weigh-in, there's not going to be an event. You guys are going to lose by forfeit. Okay, yeah, we're hosting Bothell next Thursday. Okay, just make sure it's certified by next Thursday.
That would be a forfeit by the home team?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I will follow up to make sure that they're doing that. Now, the truth of the matter is, for you, all I want you to know is that just follow that bullet point. So you don't need to get wrapped up in the, Bob told them. Like, I don't want you to make them forfeit, but I'm going to tell them that to prompt them that, okay, this is serious, like we got to fix this, versus, each of the referees will let it slide. Like, if they know that, then they will take care of the problem. So, but for you, don't worry about that administration of that kind of stuff. You'll just use this. You go there, even if you were the one that was there last Tuesday when it wasn't certified, don't get caught up in the, well, I'm not going to let you guys wrestle. Just go, okay, coach, you really got to get this fixed. We'll use a non-certified scale tonight, so that's your approach as the official on site. But me, in my role as the assigner, talking to the schools, I'm the one that's got to sort of bring the hammer down on and get them to make something come into compliance, okay? I don't want the official to have to worry about that, okay? All right. So when we got a scale's good to go, right? So now we're ready to start weighing, we believe, because the time is arriving. So again, for a dual meet, the weigh-in time no earlier than 1 hour prior to the start of the contest. It could be shorter. They could weigh in 5 minutes prior to the start of wrestling if they really wanted to, if they were quick enough. But a maximum of 1 hour prior. What they're avoiding, right, is they don't want, you're weighing in like, 12 hours prior, and then the guy steps on the mat and he doesn't weigh anything near what he's supposed to weigh. So there's an element of, they want you to make sure that some guy's not dropping 10 pounds the day of the competition, but then because he has 6 hours to recover, he's 10 pounds or 12 pounds heavier by the time he steps on the mat. So when it's only within an hour, if the guy's sucking a lot of weight, he's gonna suffer probably. Because even if he tries to rehydrate and all that stuff, he's not gonna feel very good if his stuff's sloshing around in his stomach. And so 1 hour prior for a dual meet, 2 hours prior for a tournament. That's because usually tournaments have more people to weigh in, and they have more sort of logistics to take care of in terms of setting up the mats, getting the brackets in the computer, and all the seatings and all this. So there's a bunch of stuff they have to do, and so then they have a maximum of 2 hours. They could weigh in less. Sometimes they weigh in an hour and a half before wrestling starts. Just depends on what they want to do, but the max is an hour. So it's time to weigh in. So in our example, like let's say JV dual meet, which is what you guys will be working primarily, starts at 6. Okay, great. It's like coming up on 5 o'clock now. So we check the scale. So now, let's say it's a minute or two before 5 o'clock, and then we're gonna ask the coaches, hey, are all your wrestlers here, Ephraim?
Yep.
Okay. Lul, all you guys here?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, if the answer is no, though, then give them a reasonable time to get those stragglers. Okay, my 132 pounder. Where's Steve? Hey, we're missing our 132 pounder. Okay, get the guy, like we're supposed to start in 2 minutes. Okay, yeah, okay. So just give him some reasonable amount of time to go, oh, that guy was in the bathroom, or he was talking to his dad out in the gym or something, right? If the answer is yes, then great. In our sport, in weigh-in, there's a couple things that are behind the rules that guide all this stuff. One is equity. Everybody should be being treated the same way when it comes to weigh-in. We all use the same scale. He doesn't get to use one special scale because that scale's really friendly to him, and the rest of us have to use the really harsh scale that people are overweight on. Like equity is one thing, and then avoiding anything that violates the fact that once we start weighing in, you're done changing your weight, either up or down. So nobody's allowed to be doing anything to change their weight at that point. No going off to the bathroom, no chugging a bottle of water because you need to gain an extra pound to get up to that next weight class so you can fill in, and qualify for that weight class because you're too light for it right now. Like, none of that stuff happens. So equity and making sure nobody gets an advantage are behind what all these things that I'm about to share with you, right? So we're going to say, yes, your guys here, yes, your guys here, great. All right, close that door, nobody comes in or nobody goes out now. Okay, so boom, we're going to control the area. Nobody's going to enter or leave anymore, okay? Now that random draw kit we talked about in session 1, I have like a little deck of cards, but they'll have the visiting team coach, do your random draw, okay, and we'll start at the 152 pound weight class. So nowadays the random draw will dictate what weight we start the weigh-in at, and that's the first weight that we'll start the competition at. So in the old days, it always started with a lightweight and it ended with a heavyweight. Now, it could start with a heavyweight guy. He may be the first bout. It's no longer, Ephraim, you got to pin this guy. We're down by 5 points. And if Ephraim doesn't pin, we all go, oh, Ephraim lost the dual meet for us. It's not always down to Ephraim anymore. He was a heavyweight. Now it could be down to the 106 pounder or the 145 pounder. It could, whoever is the last one in the line could be the one, oh, we're down by 5. We need a pin, Lul. And you're our last guy. And you don't pin him. And then we go, oh, he lost the dual meet for us. So the random draw dictates what weight class we start at and on the competition, as well as what weight class we start the weight at. So whatever.
So you go, so say, like that, it starts with the 152, goes up, and then it starts at the bottom.
Yep, and that's so up to the 285, and then we start, after them will be the 106, 113, 120, until we work our way up to the 145 pound class is the one underneath that, and then we're done. Now, again, back to our preventive officiating, like, what you're gonna see throughout this event mechanics